The Las Vegas Strip, in my book, is always going to be Liberace. But he is the reason Las Vegas looks like Las Vegas. Elvis comes in and he's playing with a orchestra at the Last Frontier across the street from Liberace, but he bombs. Colonel Tom Parker asked Liberace to come to the show and critique it. And he sat in the audience, watched the show, came to see them afterwards, and the famous quote was, "The act needs more glitz, kid."
Evel Knievel inspired millions of us with his courage and perseverance. We're building a museum so you can relive those memories and be reinvigorated with that spirit of bravery.
My name is Evel Knievel. I'm a professional daredevil.
Along the way, we meet people involved in the life, the times, and the legacy of the King of Daredevils. Here with their stories is your host, Joe Friday.
Hey, greetings from the Liberace Garage. This is Jonathan. He's the director.
Hello.
I've never been here before, but
Welcome.
yeah, thank you. It's really nice of you.
It's good to have the Evel Knievel representative in the house.
We're in front of Liberace's ultra patriotic car here.
Yes, yes. This is the 52 Rolls-Royce Silver Dawn that he used in his 1976 bicentennial show. And then later he used it in his show celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Statue of Liberty also. So yeah, great patriotic paint job on there that he had to get permission for from Rolls-Royce, actually, which is typical.
You have to get permission from Rolls-Royce to change the paint job?
That's the general, if you want to keep a good relationship with Rolls-Royce, yes. Yeah. And so he did.
Did they give him the car?
No. He bought the car. He didn't buy it new in 52. He bought it in the 1970s and painted it. It was originally green, and he painted it red, white, and blue.
How did you become acquainted with the Liberace Museum?
I became acquainted with it because I grew up in Las Vegas. Same way I became acquainted with Evel Knievel. You grow up in Las Vegas, you're going to know these two guys. So he was always so prolific, even when I was a kid. And
Did your parents take you to Liberace shows?
no,
Or Evel Knievel?
nope, neither one. Just television all the time. You'd see them all on television all the time. And both on the news as well as on advertisements for whatever shows or promotions were going on, for whatever they were doing, constantly. Yeah.
Yeah, Liberace created the Las Vegas show that we think of today, that we see today.
That's accurate. Yes.
Whether it's Celine or
Yeah.
Adele or
Right.
probably even Garth Brooks.
And I think just about all of those people will tell you. The Las Vegas Weekly in 20 even said that virtually all of modern showmanship is traceable to or through Liberace, because there's so many techniques he creates that work so well that everybody, of course, uses them.
Yeah, one of them on the television show I was surprised to see is the Dancing Waters.
Yeah, it's fun to tell people the fountains at Bellagio were started behind Liberace on stage at the Las Vegas Hilton. That's where it generated from.
Yeah, that's no joke. It's not an exaggeration to say that. They look like the Bellagio
It
fountain.
is the same mechanism, it's the same motion, and it is the same company that built both. Yeah.
I mean, that one, he says on the show that it's a person backstage that's pulling levers on it like the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, originally it was. He had what was like a water DJ who would manipulate the fountains to go with whatever he was playing and knew what he was going to play. But they advanced it so that it would go automatically to the music. And so that was also during his tenure with the Dancing Waters show.
We also give him a lot of credit for bling,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
panaz, for whatever he's
Bling, what they call it now, is really something he invented, and I think he elevated it to glitz, where it's the whole overall feeling of that sort of over-the-top fashion and luxury for the fun of it. It's definitely a Liberace product.
and it became part of the Vegas show. And did he have showgirls in his shows too?
He did. In fact, he was the first to take showgirls on stage in Las Vegas. Back in
What?
the 1940s, yeah.
Are you telling me there weren't shows with just showgirls? Liberace brought them to Las Vegas?
That's right. Showgirls, in the way you think of them in Las Vegas, really begin in Las Vegas right at the beginning of the 1950s, and especially takes off in 1959, and that's because of the French production shows. The French production shows are the reason why Las Vegas had topless showgirls that were mainstream shows all up and down the Strip, and no other city in the country had that going on. And those shows all came from France. They were licensed to play here. So you had Casino de Paris beginning in 1963, Lido de Paris, Folies Bergère, Crazy Girls, all came from Paris. That's where the showgirls really become a big part of the Las Vegas Strip. And the first ones on stage are with Liberace in the 1940s at the Last Frontier Hotel.
Where was the Frontier Hotel?
Last Frontier was where it is right now, an empty lot right next to the Fashion Show Mall and right across the street from the Wynn. So it was originally the Last Frontier, then later it became the New Frontier, and then it was the Frontier.
Okay.
It went from Last to New to just Frontier to just the lot.
Showgirls he brought.
Yeah.
And then he brought a presence to himself, to the performer himself.
Yeah. And that relationship with the audience that was so key to Las Vegas' success in that era. The showroom where the performer is interacting with the audience, has a relationship with the audience, talks to the audience, and the audience feels like they know him. It has them coming back many times to see the same show, which they don't do so much in today's era, where the show is much more removed from the audience. That was a key to that success in that era.
The Frontier must have had a showroom there. At some point, he moves to
Yes.
the International Theater.
He moves from the Last Frontier. He moves across the street in 1955 in April of 55, he cuts the opening ribbon at the Riviera across the street. So the Riviera, or down the street really, becomes the location of the first ever residency show. And that's Liberace in the Clover Room Theater there in 1955. And is a huge success. He's the highest paid entertainer in the world at that point at $50,000 a week. And it's only a 750-seat theater. So that's quite the accomplishment.
50,000 a week?
50,000 a week in a 750-seat theater. He goes from there later to several other places he plays, but in 1972, he signed at what had been the International and had just changed names to the Las Vegas Hilton. And Baron Hilton had taken it over, and he was signed to be the residency there in the off months from Elvis in the same showroom. So he and Elvis played the same showroom from 1972 to 1977. Most people don't realize that.
You can really understand how the relationship with the audience works when you understand that it's only 750 seats.
Yes, exactly.
Huh.
And you realize also they're obviously overpaying him. I'm sure, I don't have the earnings what the theater was, but I'm sure it wasn't $50,000 a week that they were netting. That what they were doing was having Liberace on that marquee to fill the hotel, which filled the casino, which filled the pockets. That model still exists.
He wasn't like a grab everything you can guy at the time. I understand it's 50,000.
Always a very generous personality, always supporting the community. He was a real Las Vegan. He really supported the arts here back before that was a cool thing to do. He's talking about it back 75. He's talking about it on camera on a TV special celebrating the birthday of Las Vegas. He's talking about the different ballet companies we have and so forth. And he's touting the arts in Las Vegas back when nobody was touting the arts in Las Vegas.
And established a scholarship for what, young artists?
Many. To this day, there are endowment funds at over a dozen universities that were lodged there by the Liberace Foundation. And they still give away Liberace scholarships every year. They're not huge, but they're scholarships meant to help people in the performing and creative arts. And so there are many of those around the country still today.
He was generous with his advice to up-and-coming stars.
Yeah, very much. I think he had so much experience in what it takes to practice like that, to be so completely immersed in years and years of practice. I don't think he ever worried about anybody being able to copy his act, so he didn't really have any trade secrets. He would happily tell anybody how he did what he did and know that it wouldn't be something that would hurt his ability to continue doing it. But he was very confident that way. And a lot of people over the years have told me the things that he did to help them, including Siegfried and Roy. In fact, they were friends of Liberace, of course. Siegfried used to tell me that when they came to Las Vegas, he was astounded to find that Liberace spoke to them as equals in 1970. He felt so empowered by this. Liberace was absolutely the godfather of their brand of showmanship. And they were always very just surprised at how gracious he was to them. Siegfried told me that Liberace taught them how to read a Las Vegas audience. He told me that he taught them how Vegas is different than every other audience because here the audience is on tour and you've got to be stationary and put on the show of your life. All those sort of nuances were part of that. And they were great friends of Liberace and very big admirers of his because of that.
Now that you mention it, now I can see Liberace and Siegfried and Roy.
Absolutely.
Who came to Las Vegas off a cruise ship?
Yeah, they started on a cruise ship, I understand, and also eventually landed in Monaco. So their first big cat show was in Monte Carlo, and they had a cheetah named Johnny the Cheetah. Johnny the Cheetah smelled the kitchen in the Summer Sporting, which is the showroom there in Monte Carlo, and ran off through the audience, which caused a huge commotion, but it was also a huge hit. They were a huge hit. So they were a big hit in Monte Carlo, and they also were signed and realized that Las Vegas was the place to go. And soon after, they were here. That was 1967. They're here in 1970.
Isn't that how the show ended also?
Ended, how do you mean?
With a loose cat?
Oh, more or less. Something similar, but they always had loose cats. Cat was always loose. They always had, when I saw their show back in the early 80s, there was a giant tiger on a shelf above my head. There was always cats in this showroom.
About Liberace's influences, in specific, did he take under his wing?
There were a lot of proteges that he actually took under his wing that were musicians, pianists, guys like Jamie Redfern in Australia, lots of people who became performers. Most famous of them, Siegfried and Roy, he gave advice to. I wouldn't say it was so much he took them under his wing, but he certainly gave advice to them that they appreciated, and I was told that directly by Siegfried. Under his wing, I would say the most famous of those was Barbra Streisand. In 1961, he sees her singing in a bar in the West Village, and ultimately she's recruited in 1962 to play the opening act, to be the opening act for Liberace's show in Las Vegas. And she played that till 1964, I believe. By that time was quite a hit, and was recruited from there to play the starring role in Funny Girl.
There was a lot between opening up for Liberace and becoming quite a hit.
In 62, when she comes here, her show is not taking off, so to speak. The opening of the show is not a hit, and they make a few adjustments. Liberace winds up doing the opening number and then introducing her, so the crowd realizes that she's something he's recommending, not just somebody who happens to be there. 1973, he said, I had to sell her on the value of glamour. And she obviously picks it up because she's quite glamorous by 1964 in Las Vegas. In the show, she looks fantastic, and she's glammed up, and they're doing a great show, and it's a big success. Yeah, but she evolves in Las Vegas for sure. I think Las Vegas had a big impact on her. And Las Vegas, if you're going to talk about the Las Vegas Strip, the personification of the Las Vegas Strip, in my book, is always going to be Liberace. But he is the reason Las Vegas looks like Las Vegas. There are a lot of other influences, including Evel Knievel, who was a huge influence when I was a kid here.
If you're not going to do his voice.
No, I'm not doing Liberace.
Okay, I'm doing it then. Don't be offended, cover your ears. He said of Barbra Streisand, I had to get her out of those miserable tablecloths and into some proper fade.
No, you didn't say that.
Who said it?
No, the one who said, tell her to stop wearing tablecloths
Yes.
was Mr. Blackwell. He was the sartorial critic in the LA Times and other places, and he was sort of Joan Rivers before Joan Rivers. He's the one who said, tell her to stop wearing tablecloths. Did she do that? Ultimately, yeah, she dressed it up. I don't think she was fazed by what he said, by the way. She was as strong personality as she is now, and I don't think she was fazed by that at all. When she was first signed in Las Vegas, the critics panned her, and he was one of the critics who, Mr. Blackwell was a sartorial critic, so he's of course talking about how she's dressed. Others also panned her, basically because she wasn't fitting the Las Vegas sort of show. She wasn't glamorous, she wasn't dressed up and whatnot, but her talent was undeniable. And even though people weren't applauding, and even though the newspapers were haranguing her, and even though the Riviera Hotel was telling Liberace in no uncertain terms to get rid of her, what he told them, this is a quote, he said, she will be one of the great stars of our time. The woman is a mix of Fanny Brice, Carol Burnett, and Judy Garland.
Fanny Brice.
Yeah, she actually leaves to star as Fanny Brice in Funny Girl.
Yeah.
There you go.
Full circle.
Yeah, absolutely. So he nailed it, and everybody else was wrong. And when he first signed her to the show was through his manager, Seymour Heller. Seymour was not convinced about her. He said, she's not stage ready. And Lee said, she can learn all of that. He said, but her pipes, meaning her voice, and her comedic timing are dead on. So he knew that when he saw it, right? And so he knew that was going to work. And sure enough, he was right. She did have all that. She was that combination, especially in those early days.
We give Colonel Tom Parker a lot of credit for doing similar things for Elvis, maybe. But I don't think it really clicked until Liberace went to go see a young rock and roll hayseed Elvis.
You mean
what advice did he have for him?
56, yeah. So in 56, a lot of people think Elvis ended up in Las Vegas in the 70s. He didn't. He planned his career around Las Vegas, and it's obvious when you look at the history. And he's very smart about it. The Colonel, of course, is a very calculated guy who understands a lot about the business and how to get things done, as everybody knows, whether good or bad. Elvis, though, also was wise beyond his years, I think, in determining what was going to be popular. And he comes to Vegas in 1956. He's 21 years old. He tried to come earlier. In fact, as soon as he signed the Colonel, which was only about 6 months before that, they tried to come to Vegas, but he was only 20 years old. He couldn't even check into a hotel room on his own. The town didn't want him yet. And so they postponed that. And the Colonel books him for 6 months later or so in Las Vegas in April of 56. And Elvis comes in and he's playing with a orchestra at the Last Frontier across the street from Liberace by that time at the Riviera. And Elvis comes in and he's got a 13-day gig, but he bombs. And by the third day, they're about done with him. And the reason he bombs, though, is not people think of the Elvis that we know later. It's not that show at all. And he's not the Elvis we know later. He's very young. He's 21-year-old rock and roller out of the South, right?
Yeah.
So his style is very much rockabilly and gospel. He's got Heartbreak Hotel, but he doesn't have Hound Dog yet. He doesn't have the dancing style yet that gets him in trouble on TV later. He doesn't have quite the vocal style that he gets later. He doesn't have the costuming at all yet. It's very much those two-tone suits that he would wear and this sort of thing when he first comes to Vegas. Colonel Tom Parker asked Liberace to come to the show and critique it. And he sat in the audience, watched the show, came to see them afterwards, and the famous quote was, "The act needs more glitz, kid." Elvis 21, Liberace 36 at the time, hit it off. And Elvis came to Liberace's show, and they did some interaction there on the stage. And so they did a bunch of photo ops together and this sort of thing. And they became friendly, and they knew each other for many years after this. And they were neighbors in Palm Springs for a while as well. There's on display in Graceland, there's a dune buggy, a glossy, black, shiny, glamorous-looking dune buggy that Elvis owned that he bought from Liberace. And so that was in Palm Springs when everybody was driving dune buggies. One time, Liberace had Elvis and a few other people over for dinner, and Liberace had bought this black dune buggy, and he hung a chandelier in it, of course, and had it all glossed up for the street. And Elvis saw it and loved it, and he bought it and took the chandelier out. But otherwise, it's the same. Yeah, funny stuff. But Elvis comes to Vegas at that point, and Liberace, that's the main advice he gives him. But he picks up a lot of other advice in Las Vegas from guys like Freddie Bell and the Bellboys, and from Roy Hamilton Sr., the R&B singer, who had sung at the Moulin Rouge, which had just closed down, and picks up the dancing from Freddie Bell and the Bellboys, as well as some other technique. And
Oh, yeah, you showed me some video. It looked
And
just
also-
like Elvis.
Yes, he dances like Elvis before Elvis. And Elvis saw him at the Sahara Hotel and also asked Freddie if he could record the song that Freddie was singing. Elvis knew the song, but he knew a different version of it, and Freddie had rewritten the lyrics, and it was Hound Dog. The original version was sung by Big Mama Thornton in Tennessee, and Elvis had heard that version. That was written for a woman to sing, different lyrics, and it was really raunchy, so it was hard to put on a record. But Freddie had rewritten it, so these benign lyrics that we know now that Elvis sung. Elvis asked him if he could record it. Freddie said yes. Elvis recorded it, sold millions of copies, and 3 months later, that's the song he's opening with everywhere. It's also 3 months later when he goes on the Milton Berle show, where Elvis starts dancing the way we know him to dance. And he picks that up from Freddie in Las Vegas, and he does it first time he does, next time he's on television. And it causes a commotion, everybody goes crazy. And then he goes on to from there to the Ed Sullivan show, and they're like, don't film him below the waist. And so that all comes from Las Vegas. So Elvis learned a lot in Las Vegas, a good amount from Liberace, but also from others. In 1956, the other thing that I think people don't realize he picked up here, the Colonel picked up, was that the reason Liberace was such a hit was that he already had a national audience. National, not just a few states, not just one area, not just one genre of music.
Mm-hmm.
And so this national audience was coming in because he had been on television. So even people who weren't so much big fans of the music might come to the show just because they know the guy. So they'd see him before they even come to town. They know he's playing here, and they're coming straight from the airport into his show. So the Colonel's realizing that this is because he's got a national audience. So he realizes he's got to make sure Elvis gets a national audience right away. Doesn't do it with television, but right after he leaves Las Vegas, he accepts his first movie role. Over the next 13 years, he makes 22 movies. Becomes really a matinee idol, and takes that audience back with him into Vegas in 1969 with a vengeance, man, into the International Hotel.
I love that. Had you not showed me the Liberace outfits, which I'd seen on television. I've read stories about that. I wasn't old enough to remember. But he's the first guy that's looking into the camera and winks.
Yes. Yeah.
And home audiences are semi freaked out because they think they can see him through the television.
Yeah, so there's a phenomenon that happens there. Liberace's the first major star to look into the camera, crossing that third wall, I think they called it at the time. Everybody told you, don't look at the camera when you're on television. That was the technique. It was, you don't look at the camera, and that makes the audience feel like they're getting to watch you from a special place, and this kind of a mentality. And Liberace had carefully watched other performers on television, and he knew of one named Korla Pandit. And Korla Pandit was an organ player, supposedly a Punjabi Indian organ player in Los Angeles. And he would play these haunting tunes on the organ. And he wore this turban with a diamond hanging off of it. And he looked very dreamy eyed, and he'd look into the camera, and women would swoon. And it was just a phenomenal thing. And he was a big hit. And he had gone on he went on vacation actually when Liberace was getting on television, and he copied that technique of looking into the camera. And he definitely knew Korla Pandit was the one doing this, and he definitely copied that technique from Korla. Korla was not nearly as big a star. This was a technique Liberace picked up from somebody else and did it himself, and then the wink is all his. And that just was absolutely a phenomenon. There's even cartoons written about this, like in newspapers, where there's a guy sitting on a couch with his feet up and his t-shirt watching television, and his wife is coming downstairs, and she's all dolled up with earrings on and everything, and she says, "Get dressed, Liberace's going to be on in 5 minutes." I've had many people tell me that their grandmother always got dressed because she knew it wasn't the case, but she felt like he could see her.
Nobody gets dressed on airplanes anymore. Nobody gets anymore.
Exactly.
What's wrong with this world?
So it was a fun era, right? Yeah, that was a whole phenomenon he caused then. And that had a lot to do with his ability to take that audience with him for many more years. He's only on TV in 52 and 53, but he's the most syndicated in the country at 220 stations. Virtually every TV in the country in 1952 and 53 had Liberace on it. Everybody knew this guy.
Where would I know? I saw him on television when I was a child.
Two places, especially if it's a show. First of all, reruns of that show, which were continue to rerun forever, and still are available out. And then secondly, he does another.
I'm sure it was in color, though. I'm sure I saw Liberace.
Yeah, if it was in color, it's the English show. So there was a Liberace show in London, and it went for 6 months. And that's the one where he comes out of the door and he sits at the piano. He's always got a guest. It's in color. He's in these great costumes. It's more of a intimate setting where he's at a piano. There's a studio audience, but you don't see them, and it's a smaller setting. There's a lot of comedy with it also, which was a variety show. But it always starts with a musical number by him, and he's always in an elaborate costume. And classic Liberace. Those are really popular cuts from that show. Our audience in Great Britain is younger because that show was in the 60s. His show in the U.S. was in the early 50s. So it was a different audience. Coming through the collections here and at Thriller Villa and other places, it's about 25% Britons coming right off the plane to see Liberace. And they're more my generation or early Generation X than the baby boomers, which is what otherwise would come. His original fan base in America is long gone. They'd be 140 now. So it's all new now. It's all, he's got quite the following among millennials and even Gen Z, people in tune to pop culture and the genesis of a lot of the things that are well known in pop culture that come from Liberace.
Has a very trademark style that's a lot of glitz. But when I would see him on television, it looks like he's wearing a Victorian outfit with ruffles on the sleeves, ruffles down the front, a big bow tie, a vest, a jacket on top of that. But when you showed me how that works, that's not 1,000 buttons, that's one zipper.
Yeah, usually that's the case. And also jumpsuits with quick releases in the back. And he would change costumes so fast. You still see people remark about this. He could change so quickly, and it's partly because they invented in his costuming some of the techniques that they still use today for quick changing like that. And people often thought even though he would sometimes change live on TV, go backstage and come back out. And they thought it was special effects, even though it wasn't, because how quickly he could do it. And the costumes were designed for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we still have those costumes on exhibit.
Well, I loved them. They were just so incredible, so ornate. But that's what really brought home. This is Elvis. This is Liberace, who influenced Elvis.
Liberace influences, of course, a lot of people in costuming. And there's influences on Liberace. I can tell you early on, he was influenced by Gorgeous George, the wrestler. Gorgeous George is recognized as the first pop culture icon, and he was the heel in wrestling that everybody loved to hate. So
Yeah.
Gorgeous George would show up, he'd be in a floor-length cape with rings on every finger, and he'd have his hair all pressed and curled back, and he dyed blonde. He's a big, huge macho dude. He'd wear a pink robe with feathers on it and stuff, and he'd come strutting in all haughty, and he'd have an assistant in front of him spraying perfume because, it stinks in here, just snobbing it up, and the crowd loved to hate him. And that fashion idea of his, with the floor-length capes especially, Liberace picked up on, and so did James Brown. The earliest floor-length cape of Liberace we have, and it's 1956. And that's the red, white, and blue one like this.
Speaking of red, white, and blue, Evel Knievel's got quite a story about how he secured his contract at Caesar's Palace.
Mhm.
It's a series of prank phone calls to Jay Sarno. Yeah, he calls up and says, "This is Evel Knievel. I want to jump your fountains." And Sarno says, "Never heard of you, kid." Hangs up. So Evel starts to call as if he is somebody. "Hi, it's John Williams from ABC's Wide World of Sports. I understand this Evel Knievel kid's going to jump your fountains. What time does that start?" Never heard of it. Click. "Hi, it's Tammy Smith from Sports Illustrated. My boss wants me to come there and take pictures of Evel Knievel jumping on New Year's Eve. What time does that start?" Yeah, once Evel secured the spot, he understands this is not a dirt track. This is not
Right.
where they're going to see you jump between the heats and the main event. This is Caesar's Palace. It's the real deal. And as Liberace would have probably told him, put some glitz on it.
Yeah.
So he has a special suit made, red, white, and blue
Yep.
at that point.
Yeah.
Before that, it was not.
Yeah, I remember it. And that was absolutely the biggest thing going on, and you didn't hear about anything else at the time. It was absolutely huge. And that whole technique that he employs there to get that done is so showmanship. It so mirrors so many stories of Liberace and other stars that I know who were promoting themselves in the early days like that. And just incredible work. Just having the audacity to, okay, I'm just going to call this guy up and I'll be so, and I'll think it's the press and we'll just get this going. It's just incredible. And it absolutely worked for him. I remember all sorts of stunts that Evel Knievel was talking about doing in Las Vegas in those days. And if he wasn't doing it, he was planning one and talking about it. And just the conversation would be just crazy. It would just be fever pitch on all the news stations and the radios, and everybody would be talking about it. He was the ultimate showman outside of the showroom.
Just so my people know, without Liberace, there's no cape,
Right.
jewelry, furs. Liberace didn't invent furs, but he
To another level, yeah.
Yeah, he did. Was this the same furrier they used, you think?
I don't know. It's a good question. We should check. Anna Natis is Liberace's furrier. Ray Lenoble was married to Anna Natis. Ray Lenoble was a furrier from way back, and when Anna Natis moved to Las Vegas in 1974, I want to say, might have been as early as 72, she marries Ray Lenoble, and she was a fashion designer. Ray quickly realizes she's even better than he is at fur. She manipulates fur like nobody's business, and she creates these works of art, and everybody's got to have it. So Ray, who was a very smooth, very slick salesman and promoter, changes gears and builds her brand instead. So sometimes you get the labels that are Ray Lenoble and Anna Natis throughout so if you see those labels, you know that's who he's working with. Wouldn't surprise me at all. That first studio was the Dunes Hotel and the Riviera. They had 2 locations in those days. She got Don King as a client. That's why all the fighters were wearing furs. And in the fur era in Vegas, if you had fur, it had to be Natis. That was the thing. The movie Casino,
Yeah.
the furs in that are made by Natis. They're worn by Sharon Stone. Sharon Stone's playing a real person. The real person was Jerry Rosenthal. Her furs were made by Natis. So it goes way back in Vegas. Yeah, Anna Natis was absolutely a one of a kind. And
Is she still around?
no, she passed away 2 years ago. She was a very dear friend of mine. She was phenomenal.
Huh.
The most intuitive person I ever met. You'd be in a room full of people without an IT. She'd not only see them all, she'd see right through them all. She was incredible.
They shared a jeweler, Mordecai.
Yeah, sure. Mordecai did a lot of work on Liberace's jewels, for sure. In fact, he's one of the latest ones. Mordecai cleaned the jewels for me in order to have them go on exhibit at the Paris Museum of Modern Art. So that's a good claim to fame right there. Liberace's jewels, there are no less than a dozen jewelers who claim to have made his most prolific jewels. None of them are signed, which is astounding.
Well, was it Mordecai or not?
We don't think Mordecai made the primary ones. We know he made some of the lesser known pieces that weren't so much the stage pieces. We know he made those. He's also got, for instance, a black piano ring I know he made. There's a black piano ring that's amazing that I know Mordecai made. It's confusing also because there are, over the years, for example, there's several different candelabra rings that Liberace wore. So when you say candelabra ring, it sounds like one ring. It could be more than one that we're talking about. So I'm not saying anybody's lying. I'm just saying that it's more nebulous than it seems when you're trying to figure out who made these things. We've had them put under electron microscopes to try and find signatures. And we're talking about rings that have 1,500 hours to make, and nobody signed them. There's one that very much looks like it was made by the designers who made the brooches and a few of the rings for Queen Elizabeth in London. Liberace said that ring was made by her jewelers. It's possible. We don't know. It's not signed. It looks like their design. It's their style, but don't know. It's hard to wrap your head around them until you see them in person because the size is...
I didn't. Are they still in Paris?
No, they're here. We have them in a safety deposit, but we show them from time to time. It just has to be the right situation, insurance-wise and everything else to do it. But we do exhibits of them. And the other thing is, I think one of the things also that where I also notice there's comparison between Liberace and Evel Knievel is in Vegas, when these guys are not performing, they were dapper as can be. It wasn't Liberace in capes on the street. He just dressed really nice when he's out and about. And so did Evel Knievel. I think people miss that a lot of the time because they're so distracted with everything else. But this guy was a dapper dude, man. Evel Knievel. He'd get dressed.
You can't beat it when it comes to a collar. If you like your collar out
and you
to
got your
here.
collar out here, but no, even earlier on, there's some phenomenal photos. I was like, people, they were really noticed. I think Evel Knievel was a dapper dude, man. He liked to get dressed.
So true. So true. We're building a new museum, or we're bringing our Evel Knievel museum from Kansas to Las Vegas. And so when we say we're moving, it's not like a U-Haul and a bunch of cardboard boxes.
Yeah, it's a little bigger than that.
We're refurbishing a building, and ancient, not ancient. If I call it ancient, it'll make you feel old, because you might remember the Mission Linen in operation. It hasn't been in probably 20 or 30 years.
Right.
What is that? Is it linens for hotels?
Yeah, it was linens for hotels, exactly.
Yeah,
where they
tablecloths.
Yep,
sheets.
tablecloths, napkins, sheets,
Gotcha.
towels, all that. Yep.
I'm just trying to give people an understanding that it's not going to close Friday and open Saturday. So we'll be closed down for a while. We
Build it up.
build
And
build
that's
that.
bigger space, isn't it?
Yeah, much bigger.
So you're going to double the size.
Yeah. Plus, it's got a pizza place attached, and a Mothership Coffee's going to be there. And the pizza place is by Brandon Powers, who invented Evil Pie.
Okay. Yeah.
But his new place is called Heavy Metal Pizza.
Yeah, it'll be good. And you got room to do some great exhibits and interactive stuff, don't you?
Yeah, we'll have a virtual reality jump where you, Jones, can strap on a
Oh, man.
VR
I'll
goggles
freak people out.
and sit on a real XR 750 motorcycle like Evel Knievel used, all painted out. And then wind blows in your face when you as you accelerate, backs off when you're not, or when you're turning a corner
That's great.
left and right. And you get to experience what it feels like with a big rumbling platform to jump over 17 police cars. Awesome.
Love it.
Anyway, we're moving, and I was just amazed that you showed me your collection. This collection is at the Hollywood Car Museum.
Yeah, we're sitting in the Hollywood Cars Museum. This is the section we call Liberace Garage. And this space is donated to us by the Hollywood Cars Museum. They partnered with us a long time ago, 2016 really, to do this. And they've been a wonderful partner for the Liberace Foundation. We wouldn't have been able to bring the cars into the public without them. And there's such a phenomenal thing to see. The Liberace's cars are an extension of his costumes, as were Evel Knievel's motorcycles. And so they were on stage. These are primarily stage cars. He would arrive on stage in a car driven by a chauffeur, of course, and there you have it.
Yeah, but it was a real, it felt like a secret invitation to come see Liberace's collection. During Liberace's lifetime, he had a museum.
Yes. Yeah, so the Liberace Museum was open in Las Vegas beginning in 1979.
Yeah.
And prior to that, he had the collection viewable at different places, primarily at his home in the Hollywood Hills at one point. They made him close that down. Too many people started showing up.
Because it's a residential neighborhood
it's
and there was
residents,
not parking.
Exactly. He also had an interior design company in Los Angeles, and he had his really over-the-top antiques there. But it was an antique shop, and he didn't want to sell anything. So he would put sold signs on everything, but he would just go see it. Basically a museum. In 79, he finally opens a legitimate museum in Las Vegas, and it's the Liberace Museum, and it remained open until 2010, actually, in that location.
Blew my mind. So it's not an old dusty trinkets where you're going to find a gremlin cage.
Right, no, nothing like that.
It's the real deal. It's Chopin's piano.
Yeah, it's the real deal. We have 18
Gershwin's
pianos,
piano.
8 of his stage cars, 18 pianos, probably 36 chandeliers, another probably 28 candelabras, about 100 costumes and capes, the Liberace jewels, his Emmys, his just hundreds of words of appreciation from all sorts of places he raised money for, and
Yeah.
all of that sort of thing. Own treasures. He has in his collection, he has silver that was owned by Valentino. He has crystal that was owned by Napoleon. He has china that was owned by John F. Kennedy, all within Liberace's collection. So it's things with its own provenance even before. He used to say, I don't really own these, I'm just taking care of them. So it's a tremendous collection. And as far as show business goes, especially when you include the historic documents in the show business collection, it's one of the largest, longest time spanning and most important show business collections in the world. So it's a phenomenal collection, and it's impossible to show it all in one place. Created, it's about 15,000 cubic feet. Exhibited, it's the ground floor of the Smithsonian. Especially because of documents, if you were to really show everything you've got, you really get into this huge exhibit, and it's just mind-blowing when people see it. Because it speaks to that influence of Liberace over those years. He's got a long career that spans a lot of different eras and has a lot of different seasons of its own that he goes through. And a lot of stars go through those seasons. There's all of this influence through that time span that you see picked up by others as you go through it. And to be honest, I only learned a lot of that because of these stars who come and see his collection and tell me that they were influenced this way. Or they'll see one of our historic photos here that they're in, and they'll tell me about what was happening in the photo. Dionne Warwick was one of those who told me the story of one of our photos here. So it's incredible what happens. And there's so many people still around who were involved with Liberace when he was performing. You still get a lot of people who can tell stories. So we record them as fast as we can. We get the stories as much as we can.
Those people are like,
Yeah, I know it's the same way with Evel Knievel, right? You got to grab all those people while you can.
we got to get this museum open. Ow. Now's better than tomorrow.
And then, but the guy's like, when he sets up that jumping the fountains, that's an incredible story. And that's great. That's just a phenomenal thing. And there's going to be people around who were there then that you can interview. You'll find them. They'll come to your museum in Las Vegas, and you'll find them, and they'll tell you the stories. You put the word out, they'll show up.
His last idea was also a big Vegas deal.
What was that?
He proposed to jump out of an airplane into a haystack.
I remember this.
One of 13 haystacks.
Yes, and you'd bet on which one he was going to land in.
Yeah, had his spleen removed so he could jump out of an airplane. I don't know what that has to do with it.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yes, I remember my brother explaining to me why he had his spleen removed. Like, could you do anything for more to get everybody watching? Yeah, I don't think I don't think the authorities were too crazy about him jumping out of an airplane into a haystack. Yeah. Oh man, was that after the Snake River?
Yes. It was the final straw.
That was the last,
It
the
was
last
just-
straw, as it were,
Yeah. Yeah, as it were.
so to speak. I remember that one though. I remember that. Yeah, He's going to put a bunch of haystacks in a big lot, and you bet on which one he lands in. Oh my God.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you mentioned how and why it's not on display, because it's just too massive to be on display. There's no way you could afford to rent the Smithsonian.
Yeah, and also what we want to do is like any museum that's personality driven, you want to tell that story with those artifacts, right? With the artifacts we have, we can tell that story probably 7 or 8 times at different locations. It doesn't serve well the legacy to have it all in one place. You can have multiple locations. We have exhibits right now. There's one in Spokane, Washington, celebrating the 50th anniversary of the World's Fair there because Liberace played it. There's various different places across the country, but we played the Met Gala and the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. We played the Paris Museum of Modern Art. We played the WIC in Fort Lauderdale with a amazing costume exhibit there for 6 months. So different things like that, and it gets it out more, and more people see. And also different price points. We have a free exhibit at Resorts World right now in the lobby of the Conrad Hotel. It's not a big exhibit, but it's one of Liberace's pianos, candelabra, some art, and it's free. It's in the lobby. So we like to be able to get it out there where people can see it for nothing, as well as the really substantial exhibits where you're paying a ticket to go see, like this one.
Do you feel like you're competing with yourself when you let somebody see that for free at a casino?
No, it's a teaser. It'll, if anything, if they understand it, comprehend it, if they want to see more, they're going to find the rest and pay to see it. Yeah, we do get.
How's the casino feel about that?
They asked for it. It's been there since it opened, so it's 3 years now that it's been there, and 4 years now since it's been there. No, we're happy to keep it there. Right now, it's just the Resorts World inside the lobby of the Conrad Hotel there. Right now, also, we've had for the past 3 years, the offices of the Clark County Commission in Ross Miller's office, Commissioner Ross Miller's office. He created a retro Las Vegas hotel room style designed conference room out of his office. And so you go in there and suddenly you're back in the 50s in Vegas. And it's completely Liberace'd out. It's got a Liberace costume. We've got a whole exhibit in there. Big painting of Liberace in there. It's all from the Liberace Museum collection. And so that's a major exhibit. That's public space. Anybody can go in there. You just got to tell them you're coming and set an appointment to go see it. But they'll have you in to check it out. It's a great exhibit that Ross Miller did. And Ross's term ends I think in November. So soon he'll be gone, and we're going to pick up that and take it back to Thriller Villa and here, and we'll see where it goes next. But that's our 2 main ones in Las Vegas that are free right now. And other than that, it's Thriller Villa, where our main tour is, which is the former home of Michael Jackson, which we also run. And that property houses the major Liberace Museum collection in storage there, in secure storage. And then also here, the Liberace Garage, of course, where we have the cars, big artifacts.
I'm so glad Thriller Villa is open to the public. Because I wasn't sure if I'm looking at the archives or if this is someplace somebody could get tickets to, because it is insane.
Yeah, you can get in. It's not open to the public, but you can book it, and we'll take you through on a tour. And yes, it is possible to do. Just go to everything we have to offer is at LiberaceMuseum.com. So it's easy to go there and book it.
My daughter spent the summer in Las Vegas as an intern at a variety show, which was a great experience. She spent 90 days here. This is a 3-month internship. Not a day under 100 degrees.
She was here for the hottest part of the year, right?
Yeah. But one of our highlights was going through Thriller Villa with you.
That was a blast.
She was raised on piano, so
yeah,
she may have seen some of her music has Bizet's name on it, but she doesn't know Bizet music. And Gershwin's piano, it's like Liberace's collection, not a collection of Liberace stuff.
Yeah.
But the portrait, portrait. Over the fireplace, a portrait that maybe Liberace commissioned.
It was commissioned by the John Oswego Nugget in Reno.
Okay, good. I'm so glad. I was worried about his ego was that big.
Yeah, 1978 they had that done. And it hung there until they closed in, I believe, 2007. And
Nugget in Reno?
Yeah.
My wife worked there.
Yeah, that's the spot. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
So that painting came from their lobby to the Liberace Foundation then, So it's a great piece. It's on the hearth in Thriller Villa now, over the fireplace.
Just so many memories. I know it's not like the most valuable thing, but the just photograph of him at WrestleMania 1.
Yeah. Yeah. WrestleMania 1. He had a lot of appearances in wrestling shows over the years, beginning probably around 1959, 1960. And he's in a lot of the advertisements for wrestling shows. He would interview people. He'd be a subject they'd interview. Just showman on site.
Yeah. I was just telling a person today I'm going to go record a podcast about Evel Knievel. And he was too young to remember. He doesn't know Evel Knievel. You know Knievel? And I said, he's a daredevil. He jumps over stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember. Is it like wrestling? I said, it shares a fan base, yes.
Yeah, it does share a fan base. Yeah, and that's the term that people have forgotten is daredevil. I think that these guys nowadays, when people have these successes, they create a show or an attraction that they calculate very well. They know is going to be a hit, and there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And they know they're going to pull it off because they do all this incredible calculations ahead of time that they did not have in that era. And so there isn't a daredevil anymore. There's performers now. But in those days, he's hitting the ramp doing, I don't know, 60 something miles an hour. I don't know how fast, but fast, wondering if he's going to make the other side. And it's just it feels about right.
That's exactly right. He did not have a speedometer, but he had an assistant stand there and go, looks about right. You're good to go.
There you go. We'll just eyeball it. It'll be fine.
It's not as if there wasn't such a thing as physics in 1960. It was there and available.
There just wasn't anybody doing this for this kind of thing. And there was so much of that sort of thing in showmanship in general, where it was just like, let's swing at it and see if it works. And you have hits and misses. But the daredevil concept just really, I think, personified that in that era, because daredevils they just drew all the attention. They'd take all the oxygen out of the room when the news was on. It just had to be, everybody was going to see if this actually happened. The people, and no matter what happened, everybody was going to say, I always knew he'd make it, or I always knew he wouldn't. No matter what.
That's true. Yeah, they did. They did.
They do that with all the stars, too. I always knew they'd make it, or I always knew they wouldn't. That was the nature of the
But there was no way. Some of those things he'd walk away from, and I'm like, how do you drop a mile to the bottom of the canyon and live?
Exactly.
Or get up from those heinous wrecks and walk away.
Oh, you watch some of those in slow motion. It's, oh, no, I can't even watch that. I can just feel it.
Every week, I'm watching the same things over, and it's way old news now. Like,
Yeah.
I've been watching the same video for 7 years, and every Saturday, I'm like, oh, God, you watch it. I can't watch this anymore.
Exactly.
That
was crazy.
You have a collection that's on display that was underwritten by Liberace at $50,000 a week, and now you don't have $50,000.
Underwritten it more than that, actually. By the time he opens his museum, he's making a lot more than that. I don't think people know, but his biggest paydays were not even back then, even in inflation-adjusted dollars. By 1981, he's making tens of millions of dollars in a year for less than half the year of work. He's given everything away as he earns it, and he spends. He loves to spend, but it's usually on the show that he's investing in.
Yeah.
And so we don't have what he left. The museum was relatively small because it held its own. It was able to sell tickets like mad, and people wanted to come, and he kicked it off and showed up, and people were there to see him too. And of course, it was a big hit. It was always in the top 10 attractions when it was open. It went flying off a cliff in the recession of 2008. So by 2013, it was totally out of money, and it had closed, and he's gone too. There was this whole point where it had completely gone scattered to the wind. And we managed to keep that from happening, but with no endowment. There's no endowment. What are you going to do, right?
You got to give me 5 on that, because ours did scatter to the winds, and we had to collect.
Oh, man, that's difficult.
Yeah. Is there anything missing? Is there a holy grail out there? Elvis took off his tiger belt, threw it out in the crowd. Nobody knows where it is.
Wow. See, that's something to crowdsource, because somebody's going to know.
Yeah. And then Evel's got, where's his Caesar's Palace motorcycle? Got the helmet, got the suit, but the motorcycle just
Good question. Yeah. So the Holy Grail for us, not anything that we don't already have. We do have just about every important artifact of Liberace's. There's some out there that are fantastic that we don't own. But most of those I learned about because I met the collectors. And I just went, wow, what an incredible piece. I'll give you an example. There's a great piano ring that's silver and turquoise, owned by a collector here in Las Vegas named John Altimus, who's a good friend of ours. And the piece is a sterling silver ring, and it's a piano ring like his other piano rings, but the piano is sterling silver and turquoise, which is very Nevada. So in Nevada, it's Navajo. So he had this thing made at some point, or somebody gave it to him. I don't know. A lot of these are gifts, so you never know. And it belonged to Terry Clarkson at one time, which was one of the valets of Liberace on stage. And he gave it to John Altimus. And Altimus has this piece, and I'm like, that's just a phenomenal piece. It's such a Nevada, Las Vegas Liberace piece. It says it all in that one piece. So I told him I want to show that the next time we do the jewels, and we will. So I wouldn't say it's a holy grail for us because Liberace, we're fortunate that he put all of this together and kept it together. He sets it up as an institution with the goal being to provide support to the performing and creative arts, and that it would earn income to do that. And it still does. We're getting back there. We're getting up there. It'll take a while to get back to that, but it did for many years do that because he kept it all together like that. It put it all in an institution and then made sure it was professionally run as much as he could. It was never perfect. It was always controversial. It did go bankrupt at one point, but it's still together. It's still together. So that has allowed us to maintain these major artifacts and hang on to them so that we're able to do it. So the major costumes, the major jewels, the major cars are all still in the collection.
that has to be a major commitment by you personally.
Yeah. It's definitely a labor of love. It's definitely of making sure we want to make sure that this legacy lives on, and also that it can. We believe it can recuperate to a point where it's self-sustaining. It's getting there, and then to the point where it's constantly, on an ongoing basis, providing support to the performing arts, and it'll do that ultimately in a self-sustaining way through licensing primarily. You guys have done well with licensing. I keep seeing Evel Knievel popping up in licensing, and I recognize it when I see it. When I see the motorcycle toy, I'm like, that's brilliant. And great use is great setup.
You had it, right?
Yeah, of course. Are you kidding? I even had a red, white, and blue mini bike. Now that you mention it, 3.5 horsepower, Briggs and Stratton. My parents are gone now, so I can say yes, I did jump it. No shocks on this thing. Yeah. Oh man, but that era was really something else. Yeah.
Where do you see your collection in 5 years?
I would say more refinement of the same kind of a use, continuing to improve the spaces we occupy and obtain more spaces that are even more conducive to the kinds of exhibits we'd really like to put on. It's hard to exhibit costumes and jewels, for example, because of environmental concerns. So we keep them at Thriller Villa. The reason Thriller Villa is great for the costumes is that it is, of course, completely, the air conditioning is critical, but also the way we have them there, even the exhibited ones are in a almost completely dust-free environment. It makes it so that the care is much easier. These casinos, let me tell you, everybody says, oh, don't you want these things in a casino? These casinos look immaculate.
Yeah.
And anything you got in there has a coat of dust on it an inch thick in 3 days. It's not nearly as clean as it looks. I might be exaggerating slightly, but only slightly.
It was like cigarettes.
I tell you when they don't, it's the dust.
Yeah.
In the casinos, there's dust like you wouldn't believe. They're constantly dusting for a good reason. Yeah.
Thriller Villa doesn't hurt that it's an underground nuclear bunker.
Yeah, exactly. That bomb shelter. People are going, what happens if they get past the alarms and actually manage to get down here? And good luck finding your way out, and then not getting shot when you do. So I don't have a lot of tolerance for thieves and these people that will wreck everything you work used to create.
As a museum guy yourself and a Las Vegas person, you've read the news probably since I've seen you that the Neon Museum is moving across the street from our museum.
Indeed.
How excited are you?
Oh, it's going to be phenomenal. Honestly, I think the leadership there knows what they're doing. I think the rendering that went out there is probably less than accurate compared to what they will end up doing. I think they really know their market.
Hang on, what do you mean? What do you mean it's less than that?
Well, I think that was a computer generated, of course, rendering of a building that's not quite there yet. And I think when they actually have finalized it all, I think it'll be even better.
Oh, even better. So it's not like the menu where you're like, oh man, the avocado burger looks great.
It looks so good in the picture.
What is this?
No, I think that was more of an idea piece, but the actual is even better, I believe, and it's going to be it's
Vintage Vegas signs lit up, 10 stories in the air.
But you could put those whether they're inside, outside, up on top or down on the, they're all phenomenal.
Yeah.
But they're going to have enough room to really, I would suspect that they're going to have enough room to really elaborate on each of those properties and the stars that put them on the map and the whole genre that goes with, for example, the Moulin Rouge sign, which was the first integrated hotel casino in Las Vegas before it was legal to integrate. So which is the real reason it shut down. There's a whole lot of stories about the mob shutting it down. None of that's true. But a whole other story, I tell you another time. But the Rouge was that first of its kind, and it's a phenomenal story. And there's other properties too. Every property is a story, and they've got the signage that's so iconic of those properties that are no longer there. So where better to tell a bit of that story? And I think now they'll have the space to do that. I hope they do. But whatever they do, I think it's going to be amazing. And I think that, I'll tell you right now, if they want to put any Liberace in there, we're all over it. I'll be happy to. We license them now. They've got Liberace first of all, they got a Liberace sign, a vintage Liberace sign that was the first one they ever lit up. That was donated by us, but it was a wreck of a sign. And that was from the museum, the original museum. And they lit it up when they got a donor to do it. And then there's several signs that were part of the Liberace Museum where the neon was broken on those signs. And they have those in their show called Brilliant in the North Lot. And they have it set up where they light up all those really old signs using projection, and they do it to music. And they light up our signs in there, and they play Liberace playing Strangers in the Night, and they project him onto his piano sign, playing the piano sign. So it's really good. And so we licensed that for years now with them anyway, and I would love to do more with them. So yeah, I hope they want to do some Liberace. We'd be happy to do it. And again, I don't think that takes away from our exhibits. That just makes people want more of it. My opinion is, you know what? Everywhere they go in Las Vegas, they ought to see Liberace. This guy is the reason it looks like it does. And I don't think you can go wrong having some Evel Knievel in some major locations like that. And give them a taste of this stuff and have them go, oh my God. And this is when? 19 what? They'd be astounded. People don't know. People just don't know. And you combine that with the licensing you guys are doing with the toy and everything like that. It's just great stuff.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
I'm in town for the souvenir convention.
That's a good one.
So grateful for you for sharing.
Than's for coming to Liberace Garage.
It's been a real treat to meet you.
Yeah, likewise. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun when you got this museum open too. We're gonna have a good time.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent.
And for my friend there, happy landing.
All right. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. It's our mission to preserve and present the legacy of Evel Knievel. So if you have an idea for an episode or a guest, or have a suggestion to improve our show, just drop us a line at joe@thrill.show.
I just think the Evel Knievel way.
We leave you with the encouraging words from the book of Deuteronomy. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you or forsake you. Until next time, happy landings.
If you like to fly with the seat of your pants, this is where you belong.